everyone. Welcome. Welcome to this celebration of the life of Nan Johnson. For those who don't know me, I am Miranda Johnson Haddad. I am Nan's daughter, Nan and Bill's daughter. And I will be hosting the event today, along with my daughter, Nan's granddaughter, Eleanor, who will be speaking with you at the end. I would like to just give a big and heartfelt shout out to the National Women's History Alliance, to Molly McGregor, to Martha Wheelock, to Muffy Frank, who have really, this event was their brainchild, and I'm so grateful to them for wanting to do it and to celebrate my mother in this way. Thanks also to Jennifer Kerr, who is our webinar expert. There will be some pre-recorded video tributes of my mother, but before we start with those, I wanted to say a couple of things about her. We asked people to speak about the many different aspects of her life, and there were so many that we thought of that it was difficult to remember them all. Certainly her political life, her dedication, her lifelong dedication to feminism and to women's rights, because our mother really understood that as the lawn signs say these days, feminism is for everyone. And my mother really understood that the patriarchy hurts us all. And for me, that was a formative concept, and one that I have carried with me my whole life, and that I am proud to see in our children as well. I'm the proud parent of two feminist daughters and a self-proclaimed feminist son. I'm also the wife of a feminist husband, and he marched as a suffragette in the parade behind the float, and you'll be hearing more about that float a little bit later on. In addition to my mother's political life, she was first and foremost a teacher and an educator. She founded the Susan B. Anthony Women's Studies Center at the University of Rochester in Rochester, New York. That Women's Studies Center, the Susan B. Anthony Center, is really making the leap into the 21st century, especially under the current direction of Kate Cerulli. And my mother was also a SUNY trustee, the State University of New York, for many, many years. And that was a very important moment and endeavor in her life. So the combination of being an educator and being a politician was really a very, very special one. For those who missed the video at the beginning, my mother, there's an interview with my mother in which she talks about the first time she voted, and she remembers that. The first time I voted, I got to vote for my mother as in her bid for county legislature. And her political career in Rochester, New York spanned 20 years. And the first of our video tributes today will cover that. It is by my brother, Reed Johnson, and he will be showing you some clippings and campaign literature and campaign buttons from my mother's campaign. So I am going to pause now and let you hear from my brother Reed Johnson about my mother's political career. And then I will be back to introduce our next video tributes.
This is a very small sample of the press coverage that Mother got while she was serving as a Monroe County legislator representing the 21st Legislative District that included large parts of the city of Rochester between 1975 and 1995. For some of that time, she was the majority leader with the Democratic Party while they held the majority. She also became the first woman to run for Monroe County Executive. That was in 1983. And some of the press clippings that you see here are about that time and the interviews that she gave then. Mother legally changed her name from Nancy to Nam when she ran for public office for the first time. As she went for re-election, she would change the color. There's a blue version of this, there's a brown version. I think I got them all somewhere. Mother got into politics after many years of being active in neighborhood issues and preservation issues. She was again elected in 1975 for the first time She served 6 years as chairwoman of the Human Services Committee, overseeing the largest part of the county budget. And she was instrumental in the formation of the Maternal Infants and Children Policy Group. Mother took a particular interest in child welfare. I remember that one of the issues that concerned her a lot was lead paint poisoning prevention. She was very active in trying to increase the statutes in Monroe County to eliminate that as a threat to children in a lot of the older houses in the more rundown parts of the city. She was also very concerned with criminal justice issues, and particularly with prison reform, advocated very strongly for trying to make the prison system more humane. That was coming in the aftermath of some of the worst incidents in the history of prisons in New York, including the Attica riot in 1971. One of the things I remember most about Mom's time at the legislature was that she would come home from these meetings with the caucus and the voting sessions. These would often go till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And we joke about it because her clothes, her hair, everything would just smell of smoke because so many of her colleagues were nicotine addicts. I think that's how they managed to stay awake in the wee small hours. But Mom really loved her time there. She loved both the going out, knocking on doors, meeting constituents, getting votes, going to labor union picnics, the whole bit. And then she also loved just sitting down late at night with her glasses on, with a cup of coffee, going through policy, the hard business of crafting laws. And those were both sides of her that she got to exercise equally being in politics.
Thank you, Reed. The last comment really resonates with me because our mother loved, she did love speaking with people, speaking with constituents, hearing their concerns, and then doing something about it. I also had to smile seeing those Nan buttons. I sported one at school when she was running. I proudly sported one at school. And I remember she would occasionally receive pieces of mail in which her name was misprinted to be Man Johnson, and we loved that. When I was growing up, that was always just a wonderful apt error in her mail. Our next speaker is someone who's very dear to all of us. Her name is Sarah Varas. She is a dear family friend. We first met Sarah many years ago. She was a graduate student of our father's in the English department at the University of Rochester. She had a long and distinguished career teaching. She was a devoted professor, as my parents were too, to their students. And then Sarah worked with my mother on the Friends of the Women's National Park, Historic Park in Seneca Falls. We saw Sarah recently when we were back in Rochester, and she's someone who has always been very dear to our family. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Ms. Sarah Varas.
When Nan Johnson visited Rochester in 2018, 25 of us gathered at the AAUW house for lunch with her. The women who came together that day represented the breadth and depth of Nan's engagement in this community. Some, Democrat and Republican, had worked with Nan in politics. A number of AAUW members were present. Several of the Friends of the Women's Rights National Historical Park, a group that Nan founded, were there. One longtime friend from the Buffalo chapter of the Friends joined us, as well as the superintendent of the park in Seneca Falls. And then there were the director of the Susan B. Anthony Museum, folks from the University of Rochester, and contacts from the Rochester Area Community Foundation. Nan had requested this reunion of old friends, but she also had something on her mind: how to commemorate in 2020 the passage of the 19th Amendment. All agreed this would be an opportunity to bring together organizations from the East and West to commemorate the passage of the 19th Amendment. In the course of this conversation, someone proposed a float in the Rose Parade. I'm not sure if this was Nan's idea. It might have been, but she certainly made the dream her own. Nan had everything it takes to build friendships, alliances, and coalitions. She balanced genuine kindness and generosity with clear-eyed pragmatism. Hers was a bridge-building activism, and she was able to make common cause with people from a range of perspectives. She was an optimist and quietly, or not so quietly, very persistent. Nan immediately got to work and passed up no opportunity to partner. California public officials and the staff and fellow residents at Villa Gardens, East and West Coast feminist organizations, and the Rose Parade bureaucracy, and donors, to name a few. She forged new partnerships in California. She was also able to draw on the deep friendship and trust that she had built over the years with numerous women's organizations. In 2018, the idea of a Votes for Women float in the Rose Parade seemed an improbable project. In her hands, it was possible.
Thank you so much, Sarah. As I mentioned, Sarah has been a family friend for many decades. But I remember my mother telling me when she and my father moved permanently to Pasadena in the fall of 2017, that she was still making women friends and men friends, but making women friends in particular. And I remember her saying to me, Miranda, you can make new women friends for your entire life. And that was a wonderful thing to hear. And it was wonderful to see her into her 90s, still making friends and making connections with people. Which brings me to our next two speakers. They are Doneen Lawrence and Carmen Boykins of Villa Gardens. Newer friends and yet no less dear to my mother and to our family than to older friends.
Hi, I'm Carmen Boykins.
And I'm Doneen Lawrence. We had the pleasure of knowing Nan and Bill because we both work at Villa Gardens, where they lived the last few years of their lives. When Nan moved in to Villa Gardens, I had a fateful conversation with her the summer or fall of 2018, where she was getting lunch from our salad bar at the Villa Gardens dining room for she and Bill. And she told me that we need to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the passing of the 19th Amendment, the woman's right to vote. I told her I was in, and she gathered some women in the area that she thought would be interested in celebrating. A year and a half later, with Nan's inspiration and her ongoing leadership, the award-winning float rolled down Colorado Boulevard.
And actually, when I got brought into it, I was the marketing assistant at the time. I was Doneen's assistant, so I thought that I was just showing up to the initial meeting to just take notes. And
Lo
boy,
and behold,
yes,
yeah.
boy oh boy, was that not the case. Nan latched on to me quickly and said, no, you're a young woman and a woman of color. We need your opinions. We need your thoughts. We need you to participate in this. And it took off from there. Boy, oh boy, did I know I was in for a ride.
Nan truly was a force. With her guidance, we were clear that the message for this float had to be one of diversity and inclusion.
Yes.
With her leadership, we were touched by her dynamic message. Those of us on the committee who did not always see eye to eye will always remember Nan's hand slam on the table. Whether it offended you or got your attention,
right.
She made her point and usually interrupted a heated conversation that was not seeming to be resolved. She always found a way to get us back on message.
Mm-hmm. Nan actually paid for me to be a outwalker in the float, and I was one of the 100 outwalkers that walked the 5-mile stretch on the day of the float, wearing our sashes and, you know, holding our signs, Votes for Women. So that was really a great experience that she gave to me. I would just say that I want to thank Nan for her mentorship and her encouragement. Anytime we would see her in the hallways, or I would come and visit her and sit with her and Bill in her apartment, anytime I spoke with Nan, she always had so many words of encouragement, just such an uplifting spirit. She told me all the time, Carmen, you can do anything you put your mind to. Not only because you're a woman, but because you're a woman, you have that drive and that force in you, and press on. She told me so many lovely stories about her life, and I really just want to thank you all for sharing your mother with us and your father. But Nan was very special to us.
Absolutely.
On so
Such a
many
good leader.
levels. Leadership,
Mentorship.
even a grandmother figure at times. So we love you, Nan. Thank you
Love
for
you, Nan.
everything.
Thanks for your guidance. Even now, I feel like she's
Yes.
with me at times. It's
Thank
lovely.
you.
Thank you so much, Donine and Carmen. The hand slam on the table is has passed into legend in our family, as well as at Villa Gardens and with the float committee. Our mother had never had any patience for nonsense or inefficiency or talk that wasn't in service of the projects that had brought everyone together. She famously lost her temper with a legislator one time back in the 70s, and the newspaper reported the conversation, and the article concluded by noting that Mrs. Johnson responded with an expletive, which she did not often do, but she knew the power of a well-placed word to bring people up short and remind them to focus on the matter at hand. Here to tell us more about that float and its utter wonderfulness is Martha Wheelock.
My first meeting for the Suffrage Centennial Rose Parade float was helmed by a strikingly distinguished matriarch with a commanding spirit, Nan Johnson. I knew from that moment on that whatever she needed from me, I would give. I felt her determination and faith that we could do this. That's raise $375,000 to bring this historic victory to the nation. Nan was a model leader. She listened to all points of view and made us feel empowered. Oh, that's great. Go ahead and do it. You know what? We don't have any representation from the Asian community. Let's ask Mimi Ong, the gal who's leading the Mars helicopter program at JPL. Of course, she persuaded Mimi to be a float rider. The week before our down payment was due, and therefore our reserved spot in the parade, we were $75,000 short. Nan swung into gear. She called in every resource she knew, never faint of heart to ask outright. We made the deadline. Nan was dogged, but always deferential. She insisted that this float be fully representative of all women. She worked with the Black sorority Delta Sigma Theta, who guided us in the Outwalker project to raise $100,000. Nan used her love of women and women's history to teach us how important this centennial was. She was deeply educated in our history, in the laws which affect us, and in the need for more awareness about women's history. I believe this deeply inherited love for women's equality was in her blood. Nan was the great niece of suffragist Kate Heffelfinger. A side note about Kate. Kate was arrested in 1917 at the White House fence with a banner demanding women's suffrage. After a week of a hunger strike, she was force-fed for 19 days, the torture she later reported. With Nan as our cheerleader and her dynamic persistence, we made the award-winning float. January 1st, 2020. Nan wouldn't call it a miracle, just the innate power of women supporting women, women believing in themselves. Nan embodied the true feminist leader, giving women the courage, the spirit, and the vision to do whatever seemed at first impossible. She would want us all to continue her work with the women in history as she passes the torch to us. Let us continue.
Thank you so much, Martha, and thank you so much for the exhortation at the end of your tribute. Our mother would absolutely have wanted us all to continue the work. The second photo that that Martha showed of my mother and a very handsome man is my husband, Mark Haddad. He was so proud to walk behind the float as a suffragette, as a native Californian. It was deeply meaningful to him to be in the Rose Parade at all, but exceptionally so because he was walking behind the float that was his beloved mother-in-law's concept. And I think what this also speaks to is that for our mother, her work was really rooted in personal relationships, as I have said, in friendships, but especially in family relationships with me, with my husband, with our children, with my brother and his family, with my father. She was very, very committed to family and to making the world a better place, trying to leave it a better place for the next generation. And so to speak to us finally in our tribute today is my daughter, Eleanor Haddad, who will be remembering her grandmother, both as an activist and also as a grandmother.
Hello and good afternoon to all of you. Thank you so much for being here today to remember my grandmother. And I would also like to extend a special thank you to everyone who put together this incredibly meaningful event for us today. It's my privilege to be able to share some thoughts with you about my grandmother, whom I very fittingly call my Nana. As everyone's remarks today have reflected, my Nana was a truly remarkable person. She was a force of nature who was determined to be a force for change wherever she saw that change was needed. And as you all know so very well, she was a staunch feminist. When I was in college, I hosted a mentorship training at my parents' house for the Girls Empowerment nonprofit that I volunteered for. My Nana was visiting at the time and was just so thrilled to see such a large group of young women carrying on the legacy of feminism and equality. And at one point, she walked by all of us in the backyard and pointed to herself and proudly declared, "This is what an aging, raging feminist looks like." And though brief, that was an incredibly meaningful moment, I feel, and one that many of my friends in attendance that day still remember. These days, as part of my work with the Friends of the Women's Rights National Historical Park, as has been mentioned earlier today, the organization that my Nana founded and where I now serve as the co-vice president of the board of directors, I manage the Nan Johnson Legacy Fund. This fund supports the park's internship program, providing young women with the opportunity to build upon the legacy of my Nana's commitment to equality and justice and lifelong dedication to serving her community. The extraordinary strength of her legacy as a leader, organizer, and public servant cannot be overstated. But before we end today, I also want to tell you about my Nana's legacy as a grandmother. Although fewer people were able to witness her amazing fulfillment of that role firsthand, I feel that her legacy as a grandmother is as true a testament as any of how special she was. My Nana was a one-of-a-kind grandmother, and even as a kindergartner, I knew it. She was practical, but undaunted. As a young child visiting her and my grandfather in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, she spoke seriously to me about safety when swimming in the ocean and what to do if I got caught in a riptide. I can vividly remember one day when, after returning to shore because the sea got so rough that I felt like I was in a washing machine, I turned back to see my Nana still bobbing happily amongst the waves, confident in her ability to know when to call it quits after decades of experience in the water. She was unflinching and outspoken, from an unruly grandchild pouting about an early bedtime to an unfailingly slow neighborhood stoplight. Nothing and no one ever had to guess what they were supposed to be doing because she would just go right ahead and tell you. And my Nana was, and I cannot overstate this enough, fun. She was so much fun. She loved action movies, Harry Potter, Star Wars, The Hunger Games, Gladiator, and she'd make my siblings and me blast the volume to hair-raising levels when we watched those movies together, jokingly saying, "Dear, turn the volume up for your poor, sick old grandmother's ears." She loved those little battery-operated toy hamsters that you find at gift shops that sing songs and squeaky voices when you press a button on their paw, and her dressing table and bookshelves were full of them. Just imagine a bunch of little hamster toys scattered around her collection of beautiful antique memory boxes and every book you can think of. And she loved a good drugstore. From Boots in London to Rite Aid in Los Angeles, she would jump at the opportunity to go load up on all that junk. My Nana was committed to leaving the world a better place than she found it. And she knew that charity began at home. She taught me to be fearless, to know my own worth, and most importantly, to embrace the gift of life. From quiet family breakfasts to travels across continents, she joyfully embraced it all. And in her name and legacy, I want to remind myself and all of us here today to embrace life each day with her same fervor.
Hi, Nan. How I would love to be there in person to add my applause, but we'll have to make do with a taped tribute, which comes to you with high praise and much love. Who is this child? Oh, what a honey! Manners so mild, precious and charming is she. Who can it be? It's beautiful Nan. Never a doubt, she'll be a winner. Better look out, she will be famous someday. Bravo, we say, for wonderful Nan. Concentrating from the start on promoting Susan B. Legislating from the heart, caring with a capital C. Fabulous wife, mommy and grandma, heavenly life. She is a woman of note, gets out the vote, that's marvelous Nan. Woman of wonder, and that's no joke. Just watch her thunder and watch her smoke. When she sets out to foster a cause, she does it, and that's why she gets our applause. North Carolina, that beautiful state, is lucky to have her because she's so great. But Rochester claims her, the feeling is strong. It's here in this place that she'll always belong. Lover of opera and music and dance, they say she's retiring, there's hardly a chance. She'll always be busy, I'm certain of that. She's a ding-dong doozy and a Democrat. Hey, she is the best, regal and classy. We are impressed, on her we always depend. Fabulous friend, our marvelous Nan. Do-do-do-do, dee-do-do-do-do. Yeah.
Sometimes the hand that rocks the cradle has got to rock the boat. It's a line that I remember from the diary Grandma wrote as she rode the train to Washington to stand and speak her mind. She made some waves that brought a change and made a mark in time. We've come a long way, ladies, from no vote and high button shoes to the Capitol steps and the evening news. From women's wrongs to women's rights, it's a rough and rocky road. We've come a long way, ladies, and we still got a ways to go.
Once more those waves of change are moving from sea to shining sea. Women and men are talking with a new honesty about freedom and choices and how no one has to lose. The doors to the club are opening. God knows we've paid our dues. We've come a long, long way, ladies. From no vote and high-button shoes to the Capitol steps and the evening news. From women's wrongs to women's rights, it's a rough and rocky road. We've come a long way, ladies, and we've still got a ways to go. We've come a long, long way, ladies. From no vote and high-button shoes to the Capitol steps and the evening news. From women's wrongs to women's rights, it's a rough and rocky. We've come a long way, ladies, and we've still got a ways to go. We've come a long way, ladies. We've come a long way, ladies. Yes, we've come a long way, ladies.
The first question that we're going to ask is, tell us, how did you come up with the float?
With luck, I came up with it because I moved from Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, actually here. I lived in Rochester over 50 years, but we had retired there. And we came and moved into Villa Gardens. And after I got a few things put away, anyway, I was sitting down and I thought, my Lord, 2020 is going to be the 100th anniversary of women getting the vote, the passage of the 19th Amendment. We really need to be celebrating this all over the world. And so I got together, I didn't know many people here, and I got together a few that I did know at least a little bit, and said, now, I'd like to do this, do you have any ideas? And from the ether, you California women, one of you or two of you said immediately, how about a float in the parade? And I thought, oh my goodness, what a wonderful idea, you know. So I said, okay, let's see if we can do that. And I really, as I say, I didn't know anything about how the tournament ran or anything, but I had a big piece of luck. At the University of Rochester, where I was for years, they have a gentleman named Kyle Davis, who is their Southern California representative, and he used to come and visit me. We stayed some winters here before we moved here, and he would come. And Kyle is a white suitor at the Tournament of Roses parade. I didn't know what that was. All I could think of was hospitals, but he told me who he was, and he made an appointment for me with Laura Farber and the staff at the tournament. So I went with Kyle and Donnie Lawrence from Villa Gardens, and they went for the idea. They thought it was great. So I said, okay, let's do it. So I started to look for more people, and was lucky and very lucky in getting some wonderful people to work with me on this, and we put together a structure because, as you may know, you probably do, the tournament is a huge operation. Kyle told me that there were 9,500 people involved in that tournament, and I can believe it. I've dealt with some large organizations in my life, but that is really an impressive one. But Mariella and Monique and Laura have been wonderfully supportive. I really enjoyed it. So from there we started to build up the structure for who needed to do what, for how you put a float together, how you hired a builder, and from there on, it's been moving forward.
How long has it taken for you to?
Well, I guess I started about, we moved here in 2017 in September, and I probably early in 18 I started working on it, which I guess from what I've learned historically is a short period of time because people work on it for years, really. So we were fortunate, but we worked like crazy too,
I could imagine. And what was the first memory of your first vote?
It was about 1953, 4, somewhere in there. And so I may have voted before, but I'd come to Rochester and I had gotten a job there, and I was going to vote for the first time. I was a political science major in college, so this was very, of course, important to me. And I went to the booth to register, and they said to me, can you prove that you're literate? And I was sort of surprised, but I said, yes, I think I can do that. I'll go get you some material which will confirm that. So I went, and I brought back my undergraduate degree diploma from Barnard, which is part of Columbia University, and I brought back my degree, which was written in Latin, and I handed it to them. I must say smartly, and they said, well, yes, we guess you are literate. That's okay. You can vote. So I cast my vote accordingly.
This next float is a highly anticipated one. I am not surprised to hear they took home the theme trophy for most outstanding presentation of the Rose Parade theme. Congratulations. This commemorates the 100th year celebration of the 19th Amendment, giving women the right to vote. They call it Years of Hope, Years of Courage. Honestly, this one gives me chill bumps as we honor the women's suffragette movement. That Statue of Liberty you see there covered in eucalyptus leaf, look at that detail. Purple, gold, and white flowers represent the colors of the suffrage era. The red, white, and blue banner is designed from cranberry seed, button mums, and blue status, which is used almost every time you see blue. And then all of those people you see riding along the float are descendants of the heroes who fought for women's rights and for civil rights. Their message is really, upon their shoulders we won the vote, and upon our shoulders we will protect it. Great reminder for all of us as we look at the responsibility and the power to vote.
I am standing on the shoulders of the ones who came before me. I am stronger for their courage. I am wiser for their words. I am lifted by their longing for a fair and brighter future. I am grateful for their vision, for their toiling on this earth. We are standing on the shoulders of the ones who came before us. They are saints and they are humans. They are angels, they are friends. We can see beyond the struggles and the troubles and the challenge, when we know that by our efforts things will be better of the ones who came before me. I am honored by their passion, for